It was the little Honda engine that could. A production-based 125 that was one of the first to battle the hand-built monster bikes, and in one miracle ride created a legendary story that's still talked about today, over 30 years later. A mere glance at Johnny O'Mara's 1986 Honda CR125 does not indicate the spirit and soul beneath. That was by design. Starting with the 1986 season, the American Motorcyclists Association banned hand-built works bikes from U.S. racing. The top stars would race bikes that looked just like those sold on showroom floors. With Honda forced to put its exotic works bikes on the shelf forever, would the team also see an end to its run of dominance? Hardly. Honda was ready with strong production bikes in all three displacement classes, and in fact, Honda dominated the 1986 season more resoundingly than any before. It was the 125s, though, where many had questions. In 1985, Ron Lachine dominated the AMA Motocross Nationals on his Works RC 125, widely considered the most exotic 125 ever raced in the United States. For 1986, Honda signed little-known Mickey Diamond as its main 125 rider. Diamond, on the new production CR125, landed the 125 National Championship. Team Honda was so strong that when it was time for Team USA to select 3 riders for its Motocross to Nations team, the red, white, and blue went all red, with Ricky Johnson on a 250 and David Bailey on a 500. O'Mara would drop down to the 125. His task at the Motocross to Nations would be one like no other. The 1986 edition of the Nations would be only the second one ever to feature a mix of displacement classes all on the same track at the same time. But this would be the first time the American team would have to race against works bikes, still legal in Europe, on production equipment. O'Mara's 125 was special, though. Eric Crippa, who built the engine, cites the superb design of the production 125 as a great starting point. Honda's ATAC power valve system was now highly refined, and Crippa says most of the bike's advantage came from an excellent cylinder design that allowed for much experimentation with porting, providing Crippa daily showers of metal shavings. Copious time on the dyno, coupled with trick HRC exhaust development in Japan, resulted in a 125 with a broad spread of power, something unheard of in a bike with such a small displacement. It produced 36 to 38 horsepower between 6,500 and 10,000 RPM. HRC also supplied a billet crankshaft, single-ring pistons, and special gear set, making first gear taller and the gap between second and third closer. The production look does hide some stealth trickery. The bike is assembled with copious amounts of magnesium and titanium, bringing it down to the legal weight minimum. It sports a rear disc brake where the production bike used a rear drum. And the team was working on some suspension innovations. Instead of the remote reservoir rear shock typical of its day, O'Mara's mechanic Jim Fell suggested a one-piece rear shock design that would eventually become the standard technology of motocross bikes today. But motocross is still a sport more about man than machine. It was O'Mara's incredible riding that day in Maggiore, Italy, on September 21, 1986, that made this bike a legend. It would also mark O'Mara's last ride on Honda, and one he used to prove to the world what he was capable of while riding red. In the first moto, O'Mara was given the lead spot on the starting gate. He quickly moved over to give his teammate Johnson on the 250 a hold to the front. O'Mara quickly moved to second and would finish there, shocking the world by beating every 250 in the field except for one, his teammate Johnson.
David Bailey, the U.S. 1986 500 champion, appeared confident, but he was on the spot. To save face, he needs a performance to match the ones turned in by O'Mara and Johnson. On O'Mara's face, there was only concentration. He had to be thinking, what chance do I have on a 125 against the 500s?
The second moto told the real story, though. Bailey on the 500 started on the front row and quickly took off with the lead. O'Mara started mid-pack, but then began tearing through the field.
Johnny O'Mara, meanwhile, is continuing to work his way through the pack, but O'Mara has his work cut out for him.
Late in the race, O'Mara had climbed to fourth, then Belgian world champion Georges Jobet crashed.
Here's Thorpe, rider number 42, up over the top of the hill, and Joe Bay goes down. O'Mara has had the pressure on Joe Bay, and it's paid off as the O-Show moves into the number 3 position.
Now O'Mara had caught 500cc world champion Dave Thorpe riding a works Honda 500. O'Mara stalked the Brit up and down Majora's steep hills and then executed a dramatic pass late in the race.
And O'Mara has moved into the number 2 position. An incredible ride for the O-Show on a 125. David Bailey in the number 1 position has to have heard the tremendous roar of the crowd as O'Mara made that pass.
Dave Arnold, Honda's team manager at the time, cites not the bike, but O'Mara's incredible corner speed and momentum as a key source of the passes. It was a ride unlike anyone had ever seen, as again O'Mara would finish second overall on his 125 behind only his teammate Bailey.
Bailey is on the last lap of the second moto of the 1986 Motocross des Nations, an event that so far has seen complete, total American dominance.
10 years later, Steve Lamson, also on a production CR125, would become the first rider to ever win a Motocross des Nations moto outright on a 125. Even his bike still held tricks dating back to the first factory Honda production racer from 1986. A bike that will forever be a legend as the little Honda engine that could.